in a GT3 Touring. You also get leather as standard. So those are two differences compared to a GT3, which make this like the more daily driver version of it. This is mainly aimed at driving like a mountain road or whatever, something like that. And the GT3 with the wing, of course, is really geared towards driving on track. Now, we also have a manual gearbox, as you can see, so that completes the lineup. There are basically four choices. So you can go for a manual or a PDK gearbox, you can go for a GT3 or a GT3 with touring package. Now, I would suggest, my common sense tells me that the touring should be had with a manual gearbox and the GT3 should be had with a PDK. I think, you know, the PDK, you can't beat it. It's just so quick, the gearbox. The ratios are much shorter, and all in all, it's just a way better fit for track driving. And I would say that this manual 6-speed gearbox is so good for just fun driving, for just enjoying yourself. So Martijn is going to join me on my drive because we don't have a rear seat, as you now know, which I do want to say I think is an oversight by Porsche. I would have loved to see at least the option to put a rear seat in there, or maybe just some Isofix child seat mounting points, just to make it a little bit more practical. Because if this is the daily driver GT3, then, you know, there are a lot of people who are going to want that kind of stuff. All right. So it is very wet today, very slippery. We've got very slippery Goodyear tires. And it's not really GT3 weather, this. It's more turbo weather, Turbo S. So the suspension setup is exactly the same as with the GT3. There are a lot of misconceptions about this. Even we thought that a GT3 with touring package was softer in its suspension, that it was like a more relaxed version of the GT3, but it's not. It's just the package which gives you the front bumper painted in body color, the rear wing delete, leather as standard instead of Alcantara on the interior, stuff like that. So the question, PDK or manual, really depends on what you're going to use the car for. The weight difference is 17 kilos, so not even that much. But I have to say that the PDK is such a good gearbox that the manual feels like a completely different car. It really does. Because you're much more involved with the driving, of course, but also with the engine. You're much more aware of where the power is in this engine, where the torque is, because you can't just, you know, use the pedal shifters to shift down 3 gears in like half a second. So you really have to think about it. Maximum power is at 8400 RPM and max torque is at 6100, I believe. So you have to think about that when you drive a manual gearbox. If you're geared too high, you will feel like the car is not really that powerful, because we've got a 510 horsepower flat 6 behind us, the 4 liter naturally aspirated, but it only has 470 newton meters of torque. So you're going to feel it when you're in 5th gear, when you should be in 4th or even 3rd. And I think that really adds to the experience. You're shifting that gear, you're taking one hand off the steering wheel when you shift at 9,000 RPM. I mean, it is pretty insane. Oh, these tires tires really aren't made for wet weather driving. But this, man, as I said, shifting up yourself at 9,000 RPM, taking your hand off the wheel, it does add a level of excitement to the GT3. One more way you can separate the GT3 and the GT3 Touring is the way you can spec them, because of course you can go for PTS, which is paint to sample, basically choose any color you want. Porsche has just added even more colors to that, PTS Plus. But with the GT3 Touring, you can also choose to customize the interior color. So the GT3 has black race stacks, basically Alcantara, and you can't really choose anything except for the stitching and stuff like that. But with the Touring, you can go for the exclusive Manufaktur, which is a 14,000 euro option, and gives you freedom to choose from like 12 or 15 colors for the interior. So all this leather would be blue or red or cognac or brown, whatever you want, which is really, really cool. Now, of course, we also measured the 100 to 200 time, and I have to say I am quite surprised by the performance of this GT3 with the manual gearbox. So we measured the regular one with the PDK, the GT3, at 746, which is quite quick, and then we measured this at like 774. So the difference is less big than I was expecting. That's 300. What a lovely car. Absolutely delightful to drive. Mother cracker. 0 to 100 for the PDK, 3.4 seconds, manual 3.9. We do have launch control for the manual gearbox as well, which limits the revs at 5,000 RPM, and then you let off the clutch and it's supposed to launch, but it's way too wet for that today. But I really like that you've got long gears. Of course, it's a Porsche, and when you keep it above 5,000 RPM, which you can do in second gear when you're in the slowest drag race in recorded history, the car feels as aggressive as it does with a PDK gearbox. It's just during gear shifting, you know, you lose that momentum, and we noticed really well on this like super wet, slippery, cold tarmac that when the weight transfers during a shift, you can lose traction, and it happens while you have one hand off the wheel because you're shifting from second to third or whatever. So it does feel like a harder car to drive fast than the GT3 with a PDK, or a Touring with a PDK for that matter, which I really like. You have to work to extract everything from it. Having said that, of course, if you like to do track driving, it's a no-brainer, go for a GT3 with a PDK, because it's just way quicker in most situations. The only thing is, apparently you do have a top speed which is like 2 kilometers higher because you don't have the rear wing, which is nice. Oh, but listen to that engine sing all the way to 9,000 RPM. It is one of the nicest cars out there today, this GT3 Touring with manual gearbox. I would definitely go for the manual if you had the choice. I think this will, in the long run, keep you satisfied for much longer. I think the PDK gearbox will get old at some point. You will get used to the crazy downshifts and the crazy fast upshifts, while this will keep challenging you till the end of days. And with that, the light is fading back in the Netherlands. I'm going to end it. Hope you enjoyed it. You can subscribe by clicking the big button in the middle. Don't forget that. You can also check out this video